Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, an Insight. Episode 163. My humble prostrations at the lotus feet of our Sadguru Sai. By the divine grace of Sai, an attempt has been made to translate the gist of the divine discourse of Sri Ramanathan brother telecasted in Sai TV. This is purely done to share the glory of Sai and his divine teachings with more insight to the aspirants. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnuhu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahmam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Devotees, let's now continue to heed the blessings bestowed by Sri Sai Maharaj upon Megha. Megha went to Lord Shiva temple at Kedar district. There he saw Sri Sai Baba manifesting on the Shivalingam. He was awestruck to see the form of Sri Sainath in the place of Umanath and decided to go to Shiradi immediately. During his first visit, he returned from Shiradi as he was not allowed to serve Sri Sai Baba. Sri Sai Maharaj didn't permit Megha to serve him as he knew the inner thoughts of Megha. At that point of time, Megha was not completely convinced that Sri Sainath is the Supreme Lord. Whereas now he saw Sri Sai Maharaj in the place of Lord Shiva, this brought a greater transformation in his mind. He wanted to go to Shiradi and serve Sri Sai wholeheartedly. So he went and met his Guru Harivinayak Sate and requested him to write a letter to his father-in-law Dada Kelkar to request Sri Sai Maharaj on his behalf, permitting him to serve him. In the previous visit, Megha's mind was crowded with thoughts such as he was a high-caste Brahmin and Sri Sai Maharaj was a low-caste Mohammedan. But now he is of the firm conviction that Sri Sai Baba is none other than the divine form of Lord Shiva. As soon as he reached Shiradi, he went to Dwarakamai, but he was not permitted by Sri Sai Baba. Then Dada Kelkar intervened and spoke to Sri Sai Maharaj thus: Baba, Megha has been sent by Sate to serve you. Hence, please permit him to do so. Based on this, Sri Sai Maharaj gave his consent to serve. From that moment, there was a profound change in the life of Megha. He was experiencing greater spiritual advances. Let's now see what sort of benedictions were showered upon him by Sri Sai Maharaj. Until then, Megha incessantly repeated the 5-syllable mantra Namah Shivaya. Chanting the God's name ceaselessly is the greatest spiritual practice, and this he did devotedly. As Megha considers Lord Sai Baba as Lord Shiva, he began to chant Sai Shankar in his mind. To venerate Lord Sai Baba, he brought all the puja materials required for the worship of Lord Shiva. Among those, the Bilva leaves is very significant and favorite for Lord Shiva. The lyrics of Bilva Ashtakam says Eka Bilvam Shivarpanam, which means Lord Shiva is pleased by the offering of even one Bilva leaves, and the worship done by offering Bilva leaf would bestow greater benefits upon the worshipper. Bilva leaves were not available in Shiradi. So for the sake of getting these holy leaves, Megha would walk 2 to 3 kilometers and bring them from the neighboring villages. He performed this puja in a very ritualistic manner. After collecting the bilva leaves on his way back to Shirdi, he would worship all the temples such as Kandoba, Mahalakshmi temple at Pimpalwadi Street, Pandarinath and Kanifnath temple, then village deities Mahaganapati, Shani Bhagavan and Mahadev. Finally, he would come to Dwarakamai, bow to the asan of Sri Sai Maharaj, wash the divine feet, drink the holy water and perform his puja with bilva leaves for Sai Shankar. This became his routine and continued until his death without any break in his services. Sri Sai Maharaj knew the loving devotion of Megha and wished to exhibit the same to his devotees through a divine sport. Let's listen to it now. One day, while returning to Shirdi after plucking the bilva leaves, as usual, he visited all the temples. But the Kandoba Mandir doors at Shirdi was locked from inside. Devotees might wonder how the temple doors can be locked from inside. Though we don't find any details on this in Sri Sai Satcharitra, Pujya Sri Narasimha Swamiji has mentioned about this in his Sai literature, Life of Sai Baba, which says Upasani Maharaj was directed by Sri Sainath to stay at Kandoba Mandir and do his spiritual practices. During his stay, he experienced many mystical experiences and challenges as well. For instance, there might not be any food for him to eat. Many devotees ridiculed him. Some considered him to be a spy. On many occasions, Nanavali had physically harmed him. Also, Upasani Maharaj was fed up with the mankind. He didn't want to have any ties with them and remained aloof from the people. Upasani Maharaj was at the highest level in the spiritual ladder. He was an avaduta, so his mind was beyond worldly concerns. He was always absorbed in the self, so his behavior cannot be comprehended by others. Therefore, during his stay in the Kandoba Mandir, at times he would lock the doors, hence the temple doors were locked from inside. Though Upasani Maharaj stayed in the Kandoba Mandir, he was able to perceive the thoughts of Sri Sai Maharaj, who was seated at Dwarakamai. Such was his spiritual supremacy, and at various instances he had even shared those thoughts with other devotees. Consequently, that day Upasani Maharaj might have locked the temple doors from inside, as he would have been aware that Sri Sai Maharaj is going to demonstrate a Leela to Megha. Megha reached Kandoba Mandir and tried to open it, but noticed that it was locked, so he went to all other temples and offered his prayers. Finally, reached Dwarakamai to offer his worship to Sai Shankar. At that moment, Sri Sai Maharaj said, "Megha, there is a flaw in your worship. You have missed your worship in one of the temples. Go and complete that. Then you can offer your puja to me." Megha was astonished to hear this and replied, "Baba, I tried my best to open the temple doors, but they were locked from inside. Hence, I couldn't offer my worship, so I came from there." Listening to this, Sri Sai Baba said, "Now you go there. The doors are open." Immediately, Megha went to Kandoba temple, and to his utter surprise, the temple doors were open. He offered his puja there and then came to Dwarakamai and did his regular ritualistic worship to Sri Sai Maharaj. A spiritual aspirant who adheres the karma yoga path of devotion must follow the spiritual practices without any break, and this is inevitable. Only when that is performed consistently, the karma yoga is considered complete. As far as Megha is considered, worshipping the gods in all the temples on his way to Shirdi and the village deities, then finally worshipping Lord Sai Shankar by all the 8-step process known as Ashta Upacharam was his spiritual practice. The above divine sport was exhibited to Megha by Sri Sai Maharaj to encourage him to keep continuing his spiritual practices, also indicated to him his omniscience by saying that the doors of the Khandoba temple is open and that he can go and complete his puja. This reinforced the faith of Megha upon Sri Sai Baba, and he considered Lord Sai as Lord Shankar. This Leela also reveals the importance Sri Sai Maharaj wanted Megha to show upon his worship to all the deities alike. Megha's worship of Lord Sai as Shankar using bilva leaves has been mentioned by Dada Saheb Kaparde in his diary. He has noted down about this worship twice in his diary, one on 12/12/1912 and another on 17/12/1912. He writes, as Megha got delayed in getting the bilva leaves for Sri Sai Maharaj's worship, the Arati also got delayed. This confirms that Sri Sai Baba willingly accepted the loving worship of Megha and then permitted the Arati to follow. In Sri Sai SATCHARITRA, Hemat Panji has mentioned that Sate had asked Megha to bathe his guru, Sri Sai Maharaj, with the holy waters of Ganga. But as devotees are aware, this is impossible as Sri Sai Maharaj would not consent for it. So, my conviction is that instead Sate might have requested Megha to worship his Lord Sai with bilva leaves every day, as that would please the Lord Shiva, and he considered Sri Sai Baba as Lord Shiva. It is inevitable to mention that the noon Arati was commenced by Megha. Though the Arati lyrics were there, the noon Arati was not performed as part of the daily worship by the devotees, and this was organized as a group prayer by Megha, records Pujya Sri Narasimha Swamiji. We have listened in the previous episodes that when Nana Sahib Chandorkar's daughter Mainitai was to deliver the baby, as a blessing to the mother, Sri Sai Baba had sent the Arati song with Woody through the devotee Ramgir Buva. So this affirms the fact that Arati songs were there as a means of worship by individuals and not as a group. In fact, when we read through the Arati verses, at the end it says, this is a humble veneration by Madhav, because this Arati song was written by Madhav Rao Adkar. Hence, he submits his reverence at the closing of the Arati song. The worship was done by devotees to Sri Sainath individually until the arrival of Megha to Shirdi, and it was modified with Megha's efforts. He converted it to a group prayer. This brought many devotees together to perform Arati to Sri Sai Maharaj. Thus, the arrival of Megha to Shirdi is very significant. Until then, Mahal Sapati used to worshipped Sri Sai Baba in his own way. Then another devotee drew a tripundra on Sri Sai Maharaj's forehead. Also, one of the devotees were allowed to smear sandal paste to Sri Sai Maharaj. So, these were all done by individuals that got the realization Sri Sai Maharaj was an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Megha's devotion was very sincere, that brought a greater development in the worship of Sri Sai Baba and gathered all the devotees to perform an organized puja to Sri Sai Baba. Megha performed Arati to Sri Sai Baba in a unique way. He stood in one leg, bending the other leg, holding the bell on his left hand and Arati plate on the right hand. He sang the entire Arati song and performed Arati to Sri Sai Maharaj. This posture he maintained for nearly 20 to 25 minutes. In reminiscence of the devotion and practice, even today, at the time of noon Arati, we can see one of the priests of the Sansthan standing in one leg while the Arati has been performed by the main priest. Devotees can observe this when they take part in the noon Arati at Shirdi during their next visit. As Megha considered Sri Sai Baba as Lord Shiva, he would blow the conch shell during the worship. An incident in this connection has been noted down by Kapparde in his diary. Megha attained liberation on 19/1/1912. Few days before his death, he fell sick and on 16/1/1912 he performed the last Arati to Sri Sai Maharaj. That day, he could not blow the conch shell properly as his health didn't permit him to do it. And after the Arati was performed, Sri Sai Maharaj declared, "This is the last Arati of Megha." True to the words of Sri Sai Baba, the following days, that is on 17th and 18th, Megha was unable to attend the Arati, and on 19th morning around 4 a.m. he attained liberation. Thus, Megha became one of the most ardent devotees by serving Sri Sai Maharaj devotedly from the day he came to Shirdi until his last breath, and was granted liberation by his beloved God Sai Shankar at Shirdi itself. There is another interesting Leela experienced by Megha at Shirdi. Let's listen to it now. Makar Sankranti is also one of the most auspicious days for the worship of Lord Shiva. It also celebrates the journey of the sun back into the northern hemisphere. On one Makar Sankranti day, Megha wanted to perform a ceremonial worship to his god, Lord Sai Shiva. Giving a holy bath to Lord Shiva with the sacred waters of Ganga is very significant. Hence, he desired to bathe Lord Sainath with the holy waters of the Ganga. Even today, the pilgrims that go to Kasi bring the sacred Ganges and journey to Rameshwaram to perform Abhishekam or holy bath to Lord Shiva at Rameshwaram. Lord Shiva bears the sacred Ganga on his head, hence he also acquired the name Gangadhara. Thus, Megha beseeched Sri Sai Maharaj's consent to permit him to worship with the holy Ganga water. Sri Sai said, "Oh, I am a fakir. What is the need to bathe me with Ganga water? That's not required." Megha was certain that Sri Sainath is his Gangadhar, so he was persistent in getting Sri Sai Maharaj's consent. Finally, Sri Sai Baba agreed to the request of Megha. With great enthusiasm, Megha woke up early in the morning and without wearing a footwear or carrying an umbrella, he walked in the scorching sun for about 16 kilometers to and fro to the Godavari basin to bring the holy water. Sri Sai Maharaj always cited river Godavari as Ganga, hence giving a holy bath to Sri Sai with this sacred Godavari water was the aim of Megha. At this juncture, Sri Sai played a captivating Leela. This divine sport testified that Sri Sainath was Gangadhar. What was that enthralling Leela? We shall listen to it in the coming episode. Bow to Sri Sai. Peace be to all. Om Sai Ram.